Open Your Eyes is brought to you by the Belize Bank. Our country, your bank.
Good morning and welcome to Open Your Eyes.
Start your morning right.
I'm Marlene Cuellar.
And I'm Asana Cayetano. Good morning.
Thank you for joining us. It is a hot Monday morning, no doubt.
It comes on the heels of a wet weekend for the most part.
That is true. You know, the forecasters warned us very early that we'd be seeing floods. And, you know, I can't say I know the extent of the damage across the country as yet. We'll do that assessment. But I know in Belize City, you woke up and the streets were already flooded.
Yeah. Saturday morning was quite an experience in terms of the downpour that we had. We are in the city, but I would assume that for the most part of the country, we experienced the same torrential rains.
Yeah. But you know, even though it was a lot of rain on Friday and Saturday, thankfully it cleared up.
Yeah.
And we're back to some sunshine to try to dry that out.
Yeah.
And
yesterday was beautiful by comparison, right?
yeah, definitely. And not only that, you know, I think considering the other options as to what's happening in the tropics, what we just saw with Ida and how it's just devastated different parts of the United States, definitely I'll take a few days of showers rather than having to face a storm.
Yeah. It's interesting, speaking on the weather and Hurricane Ida, the deluge that New York faced in the aftermath of those heavy rains and that particular weather system. As you would know, it started from New Orleans and made its way all the way up. And the devastation that came along with it. You know, we have friends and family who are in New York City who experienced, you know, that heavy amount of flooding in the streets and what have you.
You know, we know of flash floods, we've heard of flash floods, but I think when you see it in a city like New York, it's really scary. And not only that, you're able to document all these different areas where you can just see the water rushing in with such force. You know, the issue with hurricanes very often is not just the wind and the strength or the power of the storm in the moment, but that water is always a part for concern for flooding, for storm surges, and for flash floods, as they saw.
The thing is, water is one of those forces of nature, right? And it's very difficult to contain, especially when it's in that kind of a situation where you're having a mass flooding event. It's very difficult to be able to say, you know what, you won't experience structural damages or what have you.
All right, but we'll be checking in on our weather in just a few to find out if there's anything we need to be monitoring. This is a great time for us to remind you that, of course, we are in the hurricane season. This tends to be the time of year when things get particularly active in our neck of the woods, and so we really encourage you to have a plan in place. And that plan may involve evacuating your house, should involve having some supplies set aside, but most importantly, that you initiate the conversation with your loved ones so that you can be able to know exactly what you're going to do when and if that time comes around. But of course, we are in September.
And I'm dressed the same color as the set this morning.
There you go. You're ready for your red, white, and blue.
But let me be honest with you, Marlene, and perhaps I can also be honest with our viewers at home and wherever they are. It doesn't feel to me like the typical September. And I was thinking over the course of the week, and I said, you know what? Granted, we're in the middle of a pandemic. In Belize, for instance, we're experiencing the full brunt of the third wave. However, what we cannot do in person, we used to do the 10th, the carnival, the beer fest, and all of these other stuff. I'm thinking perhaps the onus should be on the respective media houses to still be able to play the music, to still be able to put this month into proper perspective, notwithstanding our inabilities to gather as a Belizean people and celebrate together. I don't hear the 10th songs being played as often, if I've even heard one this season at all, you know. And I'm thinking it's not only me, because I had a conversation with several other people just to kind of gauge their opinion,
Yeah.
and it was the same sentiment being shared.
Interesting. You know, and I think that one of the things that could be is that when you have these events happening all around, it just sets the mood.
Yeah.
And that 10th song and all the other September songs that you typically hear, people are playing it within their households as
Yeah.
well. I know I grew up in a household where my mother would start playing September songs as soon as the first of the month, and that was just part of the tradition. We've moved away from that. I'm not sure what the radios are doing, but we don't listen to the radio as often as we used to. But
Well, we drive around in our vehicles at times, so you would
Yeah.
want to say, well, you know what, let me scan the airwaves and see what's being played. And you're not really, to me, I'm not really getting that sense.
I'll tell you what I do love, that Belize song.
Homeland by the Sea?
No, the new one for this year with the different artists.
Oh,
TR
yeah,
Shine is
yeah,
on that as well.
yeah.
That is, we've been closing the news, morning show with it. Such a beautiful song.
Yes,
I
it
think
is.
if we could all come together and be able to listen to the lyrics of that song, it's a beautiful song. My other favorite is Welcome to Belize. That's from Frankie Renault's
Okay.
I think it was from the 25th anniversary of the
Versus celebration,
independence,
yeah.
the one done by Tanya Carter. I love that song as well.
So that's what I'm saying. It should be a time where, you know, we're not able to do all the things that we usually do in the normal course, but it should be a time where we at least be able to celebrate the music of Belize.
Yeah.
You know?
And I know you're a music lover, so that's
Of course,
definitely it.
first things first.
It's also kind of the decorations that we're accustomed to. This is our second time around, and it really is tough. While we've had kind of a first attempt at virtual everything in September, this time around, it really is a lot more challenging. And I think, you know, the fears we experienced in 2020 are very different this time around. So now we're facing COVID fatigue. You know, so many people are trying to get back to what was their normal. And, you know, we even saw the videos of people gathering to do Juve.
Yeah, I'm glad that you raised that, because on Saturday morning, some people were out in the streets of Belize City,
Yeah.
and they were doing their own Juve, and you would think that perhaps there would be some kind of stern objection from the police department, because in one case I saw a video where the police,
Did break it up.
but they allowed them to at least, you know, be able to do so, you know, without it getting confrontational in that kind of way.
You know, that's a really valid point, because we often see when police step in for crowd control, things can get testy
Yeah.
very fast. And so that is one thing to be acknowledged. I feel that part of what people felt when they saw that video, you had two different opinions there. And it was, you know, the people who are tired and say,
Yeah.
listen, man, make we just have a little relaxation time. And then there are the others who say, listen, this is not the time for us to do this. We are facing a full-fledged outbreak.
Yeah.
And for the first time in this pandemic, we're seeing it in the most concentrated part of this country. It
Belize
is
City.
absolutely concerning. I know we'll be talking a bit about that during the course of the show, so I won't go deeper than that. But we have September festivities lined up. They'll be mostly virtual. You'll be catching most of them on Channel 5. And we have to make the most of it. You'll have to raise your flag and do your march on September 10th in your yards, and hopefully with just the people who live there.
With no more than 10 people.
Yeah, no more than 10 people.
Yeah.
All right. But we got to get moving into our show for today. There's a lot to get into, but let's start off with some motivation to start your day and week right. Our eye opener for this morning goes like this. Our bodies are naturally encoded to respond to light and dark, sleeping with the rhythms of Mother Nature. The human body evolved to fall asleep soon after the descent of night's curtain and to wake with the appearance of the dawn. Sleep cycles were governed by patterns of light and darkness for thousands of years, meaning that for much of history, humanity has enjoyed 9 or more hours of sleep each night. When our bodies and minds are attuned to the world's natural rhythms, we feel calmer, more centered, and more energetic while awake. Sleep is more satisfying because we afford ourselves more than enough time for restoration and rejuvenation. You will likely discover that changing your sleep patterns to be in sync with the daily cycle of light and darkness is easy, and that you feel more alive when your sleeping and waking rhythms are in alignment to those of the earth. Nature's own phases will be your guide to wellness, granting you more waking hours in the summertime when you will benefit greatly from spending time outside and ensuring you get plenty of sleep in the winter when you likely need it most.
Well, we don't have those 4 seasons
Yeah.
in Belize. So the idea of summer and winter doesn't necessarily apply to us. However, we do get more sunlight hours or more daylight hours in the summertime than we do in December, January, right? But the idea of the sleep cycle is so important. I could recall when I was away in college many years ago, you had to, as we would say, burn the midnight oil, right? And so you're up late at night studying, doing papers and that sort of stuff. And that changes your sleep pattern, it changes your sleep cycle. So that if you're a student, excuse me, when you're up at night and you have a class early in the morning, you tend to get less hours of sleep. Or if you're up at night, but you have a class in the afternoon or whatever, you find that you're sleeping in the mornings as opposed to the natural nighttime. And that affects, to me, your overall productivity. Because while you may be focused on achieving one thing, which is in this case, your academic progress, it throws you off from everything else that's happening around you in a normal course, because people go to work, people are up, they go to school, and do the normal stuff in a normal allotted time, as we'd say. And I reflect on that because this morning, my daughter goes back to school, albeit virtually. She was up as early as I was when I'm getting ready to come to work. And it's funny because she's always the one that wakes up. She's the last out of bed in the morning. You have to nudge her to get up out of bed. And so she was excited, getting ready and everything. And my message to her was simple, you want to get the most out of the day, learn to wake up earlier. And you have a natural clock, an alarm clock. Like for me, because I'm into walking dogs and doing other outdoor stuff, naturally I'm up by 5 o'clock. My body doesn't need an alarm clock for that. It's the way we condition ourselves, our body responds to that. And so in the general context of sleep, I think being able to get your full 8 or 9 hours is also very good because it allows you to be able to reset. It allows your body to be able to undergo certain procedures or processes while you're asleep.
I'm going to be the last person to talk about this with authority. I function on a persistent sleep debt. But I've always been an early morning person, and I do believe, I think that there is so much time that you have when you wake up at dawn that you can't imagine. You can get so much more done. And secondly, it's just the quietest time. You may have that a few hours in the middle of the night, but there's nothing like that quiet of early morning. But I think for me, it's just reinforcing something that's really important. We have underestimated sleep for so long. We take it like a joke, sleep when you're dead. Well, lack of sleep can definitely make you die a lot earlier. There's so many studies and the science now clearly proves that this is such an essential part of your overall well-being. I feel worst when I don't have a sound night of sleep. Forget overdoing it with drinks or anything. Nothing feels worse for me than if I don't get a good night's sleep. And it's because your body you're not actually resting. You're physically not moving, but that's when all the other functions in your body are doing their work, whether it's storing all those memories that you need, providing the energy that you need to get through the next day ahead. And we have long underestimated it, but it makes a huge difference. I try to prioritize sleep. I still can't get 8 hours ever because even on the weekends, once you're used to early mornings, forget it. You're going to be up. You're going to be up the same time you are during the week. no matter what time you go to bed. But I do encourage everyone. And it starts even, it's an interesting thing. I know I hear people talk all the time about how teenagers sleep so much. Actually, their sleep requirements are more than the average adult. They should be getting more than 8 hours of sleep. So there is a reason why teens sleep as much as they do. So please prioritize it. It makes a big difference in what you're able to produce during the day.
There we go.
All right, but we're going to get moving into our weather update for this morning, finding out exactly what we can expect for today. We have Catherine Cumberbatch on the line. Good morning.
Good morning, Marlene and Sunny.
Good morning.
How are you today?
I'm here.
Oh.
I am here ready to brief Channel 5 on the weather.
All right, tell us what we can expect.
Okay, for over the 24-hour period, we could expect sunny skies with a few cloudy spells today. Showers or thunderstorms during the daytime will be generally isolated. And during the nighttime, you could expect increase in showers, mainly over southern coastal areas. As for the winds will be coming out of the east at 5 to 15 knots. The sea state will be light chop. High temperatures today will range from 88 along the coast to 94 inland and 84 in the hills. Tonight, the temperatures will drop to 79 along the coast, 74 inland and 68 in the hills. And the outlook for Tuesday and Tuesday night is for partly cloudy skies with a few showers or thunderstorms occurring again mainly over southern coastal areas.
All right.
In the tropical weather outlook, we still have our friend Hurricane Larry out there, and at 3 a.m. it will center near latitude 21.5 north and longitude 52.4 west and about 730 miles east-northeast of the northern Leeward Islands. Elsewhere in the basin, we don't expect anything during the next 48 hours. Any development during the next 48 hours, and that's basically our forecast.
All right. Well, Catherine, we appreciate that update for this morning. We'll take the sun to dry out after all that rain.
That's right. Except for the south, we still have some showers occurring as I speak.
Yeah.
We will look at our radar along southern coastal areas. We have the showers coming during midnight last night. We have over 2 inches occur along the southern coastal areas. So tonight we expect a repeat of that. And just a reminder, we still have a flood watch out for low-lying and flood-prone area.
All right. Well, thank you very much for the update.
Okay, you too.
Have a great day.
Have a great day and stay safe.
Thank
All right,
you.
too.
All right.
There you go.
So,
Some rains in the south.
for the most part, we're going to be experiencing better weather in the northern part of the country. And we're still keeping our eyes out on Larry. I mean,
Yeah, Larry's
it's in the
packing
northern
up.
leewards, but it's still something to follow.
Yeah, it's another strong storm too. Hopefully it just stays out there and doesn't affect anyone.
Yeah.
But yeah, something to keep your eye on. But with that though, we're going to shift gears. It is Monday morning, and so we're going to get looking at the big stories coming out from last week and what we're looking forward to in the week ahead.
So we're on the heels of a sitting of the House of Representatives that was held on Friday, and coinciding with all that transpired in Parliament was the announcement in respect of the super bond and the latest development with that particular external debt that Belize has as sort of an albatross that's been on our necks from 2006. So there is considerable progress being made by the Briceño administration in terms of being able to begin the process of meaningfully addressing the debt. And it comes by way of the quote-unquote carbon credits, right? It's relatively new for those of us who are following along with what that means in terms of the whole aspect of climate change and taking care of the earth and that sort of stuff. You would recall, Marlene, that last year, under the previous administration, the then Barrow government had certain deals in place with the Nature Conservancy. This, of course, has to do with the same idea of, environmental conservation and what have you. And Belize is known for all of its greenlands, if I may, right? So the idea here is that the Nature Conservancy will provide the monies for what is called the Blue Bond to be able to have Belize deal with and prioritize the covering of this external debt. But there will be some requirements on our part, which has to do with the carbon credits that we're discussing. There's an interesting article that I refer to that was published by Bloomberg on Friday as well. And while we here, were trying to understand everything in terms of contextualizing what had been the thrust of that announcement, the article from Bloomberg puts that into proper perspective, and I think it's something that we can focus back on in terms of gaining a proper understanding of what it means. But I'm putting that out there because, in a sense, you would say it has come full circle. Some people would say, well, you know what, this was under a previous PUP administration back then that we began facing this financial situation, and the solution, if I could use that expression, comes under another PUP administration. And I'm thinking from a purely political standpoint, each government, and this is post-independence, each government, you can say, can be credited for being able to move us forward, notwithstanding all the challenges we're facing as a country. You have to be able to say, you know what, at least under this particular administration, something good has happened. So I was thinking to myself, I said, you know what, if under the previous administration, we were able to take the Belize-Guatemala dispute to the ICJ, then under this administration, we're beginning that process of being able to resolve the issue of the super bond. And so I think it's a good way of looking at it in that way, as a optimist or from a positive point of view.
Yeah, and well, I think one of the things too that is important to note is that there still is some finalization that has to take place with the Blue Bond. The Prime Minister made that very clear on Friday. It's looking at being able to get the majority of bondholders on board with this process and kind of finalizing the last details. The fact that they announced it, though, seems that it is likely and probably going to proceed with this.
They would need 75% of the bondholders to agree. Thus far as I know, they're at 50%. Yeah. So I'm thinking it shouldn't be too difficult. Yeah. It shouldn't be too difficult to persuade the remaining 25% of the bondholders to align themselves with this particular.
And the buyback is to be at a discount as well. Yes. So it is promising news. We are expecting to be able to get more details on the Blue Bond during the course of this week, but that announcement made in the House on Friday is a major development. And I know they also spoke of restructuring the TNC deal, the deal with the Nature Conservancy, which they had brought to light. I believe Senator Courtney brought it to light in the Senate a while back, and complaining about it not being beneficial for the country, and they seem to have been able to renegotiate that as well. Yeah.
But at the same time, too, it shows you how funny politics is, right? In terms of being able to say one thing in the first instance and come back and,
well, I think that's
look at it differently and approach it from a different perspective.
Yeah, I saw the comments on that, but I mean, when you look at the details, it's different. Yeah, they're talking about being able to change the tax structure, which means I think they estimated 20 million more that they'd be paying in taxes. My numbers might be wrong, so let me not do that because I'm going from recall. And then also looking at a change in the structure for the carbon credits, because the previous agreement didn't necessarily have the carbon credits coming to the country. So it's saying you didn't like it and finding a solution along with the organization to be able to get better terms for us. So these are, again, additional details that we're looking forward to.
Yeah, and it would be good for us at some point to get a proper professional perspective
Yeah.
from an economist, for instance, who would be able to kind of shed light on how that works and be able to break it down so that it's palatable for us to relate to our viewers. That's the first part, right?
Yeah, because I mean, I'm glad you said that though, because it is complex. I remember, you know, having conversations over the weekend. Somebody says, "Okay, tell me like I'm in standard 3," because it's a very, it's not. We don't talk about bonds and carbon credits in our average conversation. Yeah, so it is something that we're going to work to be able to dissect and help everyone understand what this means for the country, so that you can be, one, better informed, and two, make your decision as to how you feel about it.
There we go. So that's the first thing that I wanted to touch on. The other topic goes back to COVID. We've been covering COVID from its onset last year, and we have shared triumphs as well as tragedies in terms of things that have happened in the course of the pandemic. Over the course of the weekend, we learned of the passing of a young lady who, for the most part, is fairly well known because of her involvement with the funeral business, the whole, you know, that whole, you know, dealing with persons who are passed on and, you know, giving them a proper send-off and what have you. But it was tragic and rather ironic, in a manner of speaking. I learned of the death of this mother who was pregnant, and she passed away because of COVID-19.
Yeah.
So I called my friend Milton Paulino, who is the owner and the director of Paulino's Funeral Home, to extend my condolences to him. And we understand that the mother took ill and had to be hospitalized. She came down with COVID-19, and sadly she was unable to make it. Neither did the unborn, right?
31.
Yeah,
Yeah.
rather young. It just reminds us, Marlene, of the need for us to be, you know, very responsible. It's difficult, it's challenging. We're in the middle of a third wave, but there's a huge responsibility being placed on us to be able to do the right thing. And perhaps for many of us, doing the right thing also means getting vaccinated.
Yeah. Yeah, it's getting vaccinated and it's maintaining the protocols. I think, you know, first of all, my condolences to the family and to the colleagues of Ms. Baptist. And it is a particularly tragic story for two reasons. One, because she also lost her unborn child, but also because she is so young.
Yeah.
And it really drives home the point that where for a long time younger people felt invincible. We felt that we would fare off fine if we contracted COVID-19. We see more and more stories proving that that's not necessarily the case. And so it is a very serious situation. I mean, in Belize City, you just have to watch the daily report and you see that we are facing a very serious outbreak. We saw it before in the north. The last wave, it was concentrated in the northern districts. Now we're seeing it here, and it's even harder because we have more people living together, we have people living in closer spaces, we have more people interacting and moving around. The Ministry of Health has already said that it is a community spread, so you may not even know where you get COVID from. But yes, the loss of a mother carrying her child is really, it's not the first pregnant person who's died from COVID-19 in this country, unfortunately. And I'm told that other pregnant persons have been hospitalized as well. The vaccine is considered safe for pregnant women, but the advice is that you speak with your OBGYN and talk about it so you can feel comfortable. Most women, when they're carrying a child, their first priority is looking at how is it going to affect my baby and whether I want to take any risks with it. And I think that's a really important acknowledgement to make. But it is a situation where you should discuss it with your healthcare professional to decide whether or not it is best for you. Based on conversations we've had here, the doctors look at things like what are your risk factors for COVID-19, and so if you have underlying conditions, if you're obese, and if you meet that criteria, they definitely encourage you to get it because it's safer for you to be protected from COVID than have to end up in the hospital fighting it with your child.
So that's another of the stories that we're going to be covering in this evening's newscast. The other one has to do with the drug situation, the narco-trafficking issue that continues to plague us in this region. So over the weekend, there were reports from Guatemala that a sizable haul of cocaine in 25 bales, if I'm not mistaken, was retrieved from the area south of Belize in the general vicinity of the Starstone River. And they're saying that perhaps the aircraft landed in Belize and the shipment was being moved across border. That is yet to be confirmed by the police department and, of course, our local intelligence, right? So it's something that we'll look forward to getting some answers, if possible, from the police department later today. But what we can say, of course, is that based on the reports coming out of Guatemala, they have shown the quantity of cocaine, the seizure, and what have you, as well as one firearm that was reportedly in the area of the discovery. So that's another thing that we're going to be looking at. And of course, over the weekend, there were several shooting incidents. One which is of particular interest is the fact that it involved two Belize Defense Force soldiers, one responding to an incident and the other being the victim of the shooting. It is certainly a rare occasion where, you know, for instance, a police officer would shoot another police officer. More so in this case, where a BDF officer in the line of duty shoots a colleague. And so certainly we'll be looking to the BDF to give us some answers where that is concerned. And of course, from the law enforcement perspective, we'll also get something from the police department to explain exactly what transpired, other than what has been reported to some degree out there.
Yeah, there have been early reports of it being self-defense, but we've gotten no official report as yet as to what exactly transpired. But definitely a sad case to start the week as well.
Yeah. So that rounds out our discussion for this morning. Certainly, these stories you would be able to catch in greater detail at 6 o'clock in our full newscast. You can catch it on Channel 5, you can catch it on Facebook, and of course on YouTube. That does it for the Eye on the News.
And we are going to get moving into our conversations for this morning. As we mentioned earlier, the situation around COVID-19 in Belize is still very concerning. And one of the things we reported on Friday night in our newscast, Isani, was that the KHMH is moving into emergency mode. And so we got the media advisory over the weekend as well, where they are saying that they're going to be shifting things around. And what's the implication there. But we're going to be talking with the chairman of the KHMH to find out about the situation on the ground and most importantly, how you can still access services and what it means if you have been accessing care there already.
So that's a conversation that will be the first and second segments of our show this morning, which means the third segment will be a conversation with Dr. Lyra Spang, and she's a presenter from the recently held Culture Symposium.
Yeah.
All right, so we'll be looking at the idea of the term bad mind. That was a huge conversation when last we had the organizers on set. So it'll be interesting to go back to that.
All right. So that's what we have in store for you this morning. We're going to go ahead and take our break. But before we do, we have a birthday shout out. And we are saying happy birthday to...
First and foremost, Tamika Cleland.
That's right.
And of course, happy belated birthday to you, Marlene.
Oh,
I know you celebrated your birthday yesterday, right?
That's right.
Happy belated.
Right. Thank you. There are a lot of September babies out there. I'm sure there's going to be a birthday every day. So everyone
myself
else
included down the road.
That's right. So everyone who's celebrating today, I know there are many of us. So please enjoy your day. We'll take that break now, and when we come back, we'll be joined by Dr. Andres Sosa to talk about what's happening at the KHMH. So please stay tuned.
Bringing people together has always been SMART's mission and passion. That is why we are proud to have built a locally independent, quality network from the ground up that spans the country with over 100 sites. We continue to add more affordable mobile data packages, broadband speeds, and voice services to meet your personal and business needs. Smart has set the standard of true competition with the most competitive prices on all services offered. We invite and welcome you to join the Smart family, where the value for your dollar matters. Smart will continue bringing new technologies, more affordable prices, network expansions, and people together. Smart, bringing people together.
Imagine going through your entire day without the burden and risk of carrying cash on you. Belize's shift to digital wallets has begun with eCash. We can now skip the cash when collecting money or paying for our essentials, all while using a fast, easy, and secure platform. Simply add funds to your wallet via bank transfer or at an agent, and you're good to go. You will be able to make quick, easy payments simply by scanning QR codes. And best of all, it all happens just like that. Payments are as easy as clicking a link online or scanning a QR code. Download the eCash app from the Google Play and Apple App Store today and take your first step into a cashless lifestyle. The future is here with eCash. For more information, visit www.e-cash.com or contact us via WhatsApp at 613-0257 to find out more.
At Belize Diagnostic Center, we offer FDA-approved PCR testing for COVID-19. Get your results as quickly as 1 hour. Don't risk getting exposed to COVID-19 by going elsewhere. We take appointments, or we can come to your home or office using our concierge service with no additional fees. We have 10 locations countrywide. Call or WhatsApp us at 613-TEST. That is 613-8378 to schedule your test today.
This Monday on Get the Facts. How is the pandemic affecting your mental health, and what can be done if you or someone you know is struggling? Join psychiatrist Dr. Anel Martinez, Ministry of Health and Wellness's Juliet Simmons, and family therapist Ashley Longsworth for an in-depth conversation on this topic. The show starts at 7:30 p.m. on Monday, September 6th. Catch it live on Channel 5 or streaming on Facebook and YouTube. Send your questions to 672-5555 or via Facebook using hashtag #GetTheFacts.
With the touch of a finger, we can easily unlock our phones and securely gain access to our data. This technology is called biometrics, and the Social Security Board is introducing fingerprint recognition to make transactions and handling of your sensitive data secure, fast, accurate, and convenient. Is your identity safe? Fingerprint recognition will keep your Social Security record secure and confidential while making your access fast and easy. It protects your identity. Is your name a common one? Fingerprint recognition uses your unique characteristics, ensuring your hard-earned benefits go directly to you, the rightful owner. Tired of all the paperwork? Fingerprinting makes this hassle-free. Your convenience and your information security is our priority. Fingerprint recognition coming soon. Social Security at your fingertips.
Today's COVID update is brought to you by Fulltech Systems, your technology center, where you'll come for the price but stay for the service.
And welcome back. We begin our first segment with a conversation with the chair of the Carl Huchner Memorial Hospital Authority, Dr. Andres Sosa. Good morning, Dr. Sosa.
Good morning, Isani. Good morning, Marlene. Thanks for having me here this morning once again to talk to the viewers.
Let's begin first of all by discussing the recent release from the KHMHA in respect of the hospital and the emergency phase that it has moved into. Put that into some perspective for us in respect of the overall COVID situation and the hospital's response to perhaps either an overflow or what it's experiencing at present.
Well, August of this year has seen the largest increase in admissions for COVID since the beginning of the pandemic. We have been averaging about 4 to 7 admissions in the last week or so, meaning that at any given time there are at least 23 patients in the COVID ward. Our capacity is 23 patients, although functionally a more comfortable figure for us would be 20. Given the structural characteristics of the hospital and because there was a need to make modifications to accommodate these COVID patients, it makes it, from a structural point of view, difficult to police or to take care of all these patients because they are not necessarily all in one room, but in different rooms. And when that happens, you have to assign different nurses, different doctors to the different rooms. And this morning, for example, our numbers are very slightly down to 18 patients in the COVID ward. But of those 18, 9 of them are critical.
Wow.
When you have a critical patient, normally you would want a one-to-one nursing care. But we had 3 nurses on duty yesterday. It's simply hard to make up the bodies to be able to attend to these patients. But it's not only the COVID ward that is full. We have, for example, in the surgical ward, 21 patients. And these are patients who are pending surgery or are recovering from surgeries. That is about 80% capacity for the surgical ward. We have in the ICU, the normal ICU, 7 patients. And again, these are critical patients. Our capacity normally for the ICU is 6, so we are at 6 plus 1. We are stretched thin, and our staff is working all out. They have been doing so for the last 16 months, and they continue to work valiantly. We are the faces, or mine is the face that you see, Dr. Adrian Coe, and so on and so forth, but the real people doing the work are those nurses and doctors on the ward. Dr. Bradley, who practically has been forced to live in the KHMH, Sister Casilla Bowman, persons like Nurse Bowden from the emergency, and a lot of other persons who go unnamed. It's been a very difficult last couple of weeks, and well, I am very grateful for all the hardworking members of staff. I'm very grateful for the work that Dr. Adrian Coe has done to try and hold everything together. And I also want to take the opportunity to make mention of our acting CEO, who has been doing a stellar job trying to coordinate the effort to deal with this present wave.
So let's start to unpack some of the things that you noted. And one of the things I know very often when we talk about is people ask questions about how many beds and how many ventilators. But what I hear from you is that space and physical structure is one thing, but human resources is where the weakness is, that you don't have the requisite number of people to provide the level of care that COVID-19 and even the other regular patients require. So what would you say is the capacity for the COVID-19 ward with the requisite number of healthcare professionals attending to them?
Well, the maximum number for the COVID ward per se is 23. And there is spillover space for 13 more persons under investigation, 13 PUIs. We had figured that I think it's about 30 persons that are needed to run those wards, nurses, and about 18 doctors, if my figures are correct.
And how many do you have?
Well, as I said, on the last shift we had 3 nurses, okay? And I think it's 2 doctors. Of course, we are talking not necessarily of everybody being there at the same time because we run shifts. We have tried to adopt and adjust the shift system to try to maximize our resources. In other words, we're looking at shifting from 8-hour to 12-hour shifts and so on. No?
So let me just, you said ideally for that you would need 18 nurses and 6 doctors, but right now you're working with 3 nurses and 2 doctors.
Per shift.
On shifts.
Yeah, yeah. And actually it's 30 nurses and 18 doctors.
18 doctors.
Yeah.
So it's safe to say that you're still very much woefully understaffed.
We are coping, but only just. And yes, we are woefully understaffed. We have managed to recruit a significant number of nurses. I think that between full-time and part-time, we managed to recruit 30 nurses from the last time I was here. We have gotten commitment over the weekend from the Ministry of Health and Wellness to make available for us a number of registered nurses, professional nurses. Hopefully, we will be able to get at least 6 to 9 more nurses, hopefully by tomorrow, to be able to help make up those numbers. Bear in mind, though, it's not just putting bodies
That's right.
On the wards or in the service, because the kinds of skills that are needed are not necessarily readily available either. For example, we need midwives. We need doctors and nurses with experience in dealing with ventilator machines and so on and so forth.
Would the Cuban Medical Brigade be an option that would be considered in terms of being able to lend the kind of assistance in human resources that you would need?
Well, you know, we must look at all options. And certainly there has been participation previously from the Cuban Medical Brigade. Definitely that would be an option, although, you know, primarily we would want people with a certain skill level to be able to fill those spaces. So in an ideal situation, we would want to get the persons with the necessary skill sets from other parts of the country to reinforce the situation that is presently occurring in the Belize district, and perhaps deploy those nurses elsewhere. Okay, switch them out, so to speak.
So in the past few weeks, Dr. Sosa, and I always say when we have the reports for COVID-19 that what is reported for hospitalization does not include the persons under investigation, which means you have another group of persons who are waiting to be tested but are suspect of COVID-19. But in the past few weeks since the start of this wave, how many times have you been at or beyond capacity for the hospital?
It's been pretty much every day since the beginning of September, the ending of August, beginning of September. So, and that is why we took the step of making the release, because the public has a right to know what is happening, but also to be able to make informed decisions. You don't want somebody to come all the way from Benke to look for care in Belize City to be told that we don't have any space. So, yes.
Has there been conversation with the government hospitals and clinics about the referral system? Because that's what would happen. They would refer them to KHMH for more advanced treatment.
Yes, and again, that is part of why our release was necessary, because the reality is that come weekend, everything comes to Belize City. And in the past, perhaps we have been able to accommodate that situation, but with the workload that we have right now, with the having reached capacity, it is physically impossible to accommodate everyone. So the message is that if you can access care in your local community, clinic or hospital, please do so. If you don't absolutely have to come to the city, please don't.
Mm-hmm. What about alleviating the non-COVID related treatment being offered at KHMH? Has anything been explored about being able to share it with other institutions?
I think that in practical terms, that occurs on a daily basis.
Mm-hmm.
But Karl Huchner provides care at a cost that is subsidized.
Mm-hmm.
And the reality is that a lot of people are not able to access care in the private setting.
Mm-hmm.
There are the polyclinics, the government clinics, the NHI clinics, which provide a very important function. We would hope that where possible and necessary, people would access their local NHI clinics and those polyclinics.
Mm-hmm.
Where are we in terms of the other available resources that are being used by KHMH in the fight against COVID? Other than the human resources, we're talking PPEs, oxygen, and those other resources that you guys need.
Well, I think that certainly we don't lack oxygen supplies. The oxygen supplies are secure. However, the medical supplies, medicines, tools like the catheters to put in the veins,
Mm-hmm.
it's always a challenge. Mm-hmm. It's a constant challenge to be able to get a ready stream of those supplies. And that is part of what has prompted us to limit the services that we offer, because we are never certain at any given moment mm-hmm. that we will have the ability to put in the hands of our nurses and doctors those supplies that they need to do the job. It continues to be a challenge, and certainly it is a worldwide challenge because everybody is searching and hunting for these few resources that are out there. We need to do our part as a country to fight for those resources, to make them available so that the nurses and doctors are able to do their job. There's nothing worse than needing to do a job and not having the wherewithal to do it.
Or the tools.
The tools, precisely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let me ask a question. You said of the current hospitalized cases for COVID-19, 50% are critical. From the beginning of COVID, we faced a high fatality rate for the country. And at this point, we're averaging about 1 death a day. What is happening that you think that contributes to such a high mortality rate?
Well, just like the rest of the world, at the beginning of the pandemic, the mortality rate was inordinately high. Like the rest of the world, we garnered experience, we learned how to deal with the COVID patients. So I think that great strides were made in bringing down the mortality rate. Mm-hmm. What is responsible now for this spike in deaths appears to be the Delta variant of the virus. And that, I think, is the biggest challenge for us, to be able to prevent spread, because you will have noticed that the deaths now are occurring in other population groups. It's not just the older folks who are dying, but younger people and pregnant women, for example. And I think that it can all be, well, for the most part, attributed to the appearance of the Delta variant in Belize.
It's particularly devious, the fact that you can feel not well, but sick, but not recognize how sick you are. Are people accessing treatment too late?
You know, wishful thinking is one of those things that is characteristic of human beings. And you might start to feel the symptoms, and you say, oh, it's just a little flu. it's going to go away. That can be a dangerous thing, particularly if you're a pregnant woman. It can be a dangerous thing if you have underlying conditions like diabetes, hypertension, cancer, and so on. So yes, I think you are right. People are not accessing the care in a timely manner in many instances. I am not certain how much of an impact the uptake of vaccines might have on the eventual toll, but I think that certainly clinical experience has shown us that it is those persons who are unvaccinated who are becoming sick for the most part. We do have instances of persons with the first dose who fall ill because obviously they haven't gotten the full protection of the 2 doses. And
there's been an instance of fully vaccinated people also being hospitalized.
Yes, the so-called breakthrough infections are there. And I can tell you from personal experience, I became ill with COVID about a month ago. And it was a surprise to me, but not unexpected.
Because you're fully vaccinated.
Because I was fully vaccinated. I can say that I suffered the effects of fatigue, lack of appetite, and just general malaise, but it didn't go beyond that. I lost a few pounds, which some might say I can't afford to, but that's the extent of it, no?
And having had that personal experience, how do you think that changes, or how does that impact how you think people in this country, what your advice to people in the country about detecting COVID or catching COVID even if after you're fully vaccinated?
You know, you can't let your guard down. So even if you're fully vaccinated, continue using your masks. Continue avoiding large crowds and agglomerations. The vaccine provides wonderful protection, but it is not going to guarantee that you're not going to get ill. But also be courteous. If you know you are ill, if you suspect you are ill, quarantine yourself. Do not go out and cause infection in other people who might be more vulnerable than you are.
Let's put this into perspective though, because I think it is important to acknowledge that breakthrough infections are taking place in the country, and some of them have led to hospitalizations. The vaccination for AstraZeneca is a bit over 80% effective, so you'll still have over 10% that may still get COVID. What is the breakdown that you're seeing at KHMH, unvaccinated versus vaccinated?
Overwhelmingly, unvaccinated persons are the ones being admitted. We've had maybe like about 9 persons who had one vaccine and who became ill and required hospitalization. But overwhelmingly, it's the unvaccinated who are becoming ill.
So 9 out of how many would you say in the past?
That would be, I think 100 and odd admissions, 164 if I'm not mistaken, or somewhere thereabouts. The numbers become jumbled after a while.
I know, and I was going to say, in COVID recovery, they say you have brain fog sometimes too. So, but yeah, so 9 out of over 100 cases is what you're seeing, vaccinated versus unvaccinated. Because we want to remind people that it does help to give an extra level of protection.
Yes, and you know, one of the debates that will need to be had pretty soon is whether we are going to need booster vaccines. And that's a whole other discussion which has implications in terms of planning and in terms of the economic cost. We know that the level of protection gradually decreases after several months, and that is something we view with grave concern at the KHMH, and we will have to find the resources if indeed the science says that we will need to give booster doses, a third dose, for example, to our staff.
Is the science clear on the AstraZeneca third shot yet? Booster shot?
I think that the science is getting there. It's not just AstraZeneca, sorry. It's all the vaccines which will see a gradual decline in terms of the protection as the level of antibodies decreases.
So how would you provide any assurance to persons who are skeptical? Because you do have people who are of the opinion that if the vaccine doesn't provide the 100% coverage in terms of me being fully protected, so to speak, and they're on the fence in terms of wanting to get vaccinated or not based on the information that is available, how do you then tell that individual, look, the vaccine is still something that you should want to take because of what is happening?
I think I saw a statistic somewhere that said that you are 19 times more likely to become sufficiently ill to be hospitalized if you're not vaccinated. Vaccination certainly might not necessarily mean that you won't get infected, but with the vaccination, it more than likely means that you will survive. Okay? And that, I think, is the important message.
All right, well, we're going to talk a bit more about the demographics of the patients that you're seeing at KHMH. I think that's a critical point to discuss. But we'll take a very quick break and we'll resume that conversation in just a few, so please stay tuned.
Working off-site doesn't mean you have to be off your game. Studies have shown that simply adding a keyboard and mouse to your laptop increases productivity by 26%. Add a monitor and you'll be 35% more productive. At Fulltech Systems, we have what you need to enhance your remote work or e-learning experience. With devices such as headsets, video conferencing monitors, webcams, keyboards, mice, docking stations, all with the brands you trust. Keep connected with collaboration tools like Microsoft 365 Suite and Kaspersky and perform efficiently no matter where you are. Fulltech Systems, your technology center, where you'll come for the price, but stay for the service.
The vaccine is now available. We here at R&G Life encourage you to take the vaccine. Belize, it's time to roll up our sleeves.
I'm rolling up mine because I know what COVID can do to families.
Because I want to go back to the way things were.
I'm rolling up mine so that I'm able to do music again.
Because I want to protect my family.
Things are slowly getting back to normal. The new normal, which includes getting vaccinated. Trust the facts. When your turn comes, take the opportunity to get vaccinated. Roll up or believe.
Hey son, how was your first day at Sixth Form?
Really cool. It was great to see my friends, and I really love my teachers.
I'm so happy to hear that. I'm sorry I wasn't there for your first day, but I'll be back from Corozal next week.
It's okay, Dad. I can't wait to see you. Oh, and please remember, I still have some books I need to purchase.
Ah, yes. Let me e-cash you that right now. Money has been sent. I add a little extra cash just for you.
Whoa, Dad. Thanks. Got it.
You're welcome, sir.
Download the eCash app today and take your first step into a cashless lifestyle. For more information, visit www.e-cash.com or contact us via WhatsApp at 613-0257. eCash, the future is here.
And welcome back. We continue our conversation with Dr. Andrew Sosa. He's the chair of the KHNHA, and we're discussing all things COVID and the hospital's response to the surge in cases during this third wave. Dr. Sosa, let's continue with where we left off earlier. We were talking about persons who were on the fence, and we had responded to that. But one of the questions that I have, and perhaps it's something that's also at the forefront of other people's minds, is what plan, if any, is there in terms of a short-term means of addressing what is taking place at the hospital? You've issued a statement, but what next? What can we look forward to?
Well, we have to ride the wave. We have no alternative. Our staff is working flat out to do that. We will need some help in terms of securing all the necessary supplies to be able to do the work. The supply chain has been very iffy for the last several months. I think that it is fair, though, to say that in the last week or so there has been improvement, but we're not there yet. So we need to secure those supply chains. That's one. Two, we will need more staff to bolster and to relieve the KHMH personnel.
What's the average number of hours that the staff in the COVID unit is working?
8 to 12 hours, but presently nobody is getting vacation, and it's been several weeks or months actually before anyone has been able to get vacation.
When you say vacation, this is notwithstanding the 2 days off or so, or are they working every day?
In many instances, they work every day. There just aren't enough people.
Yeah.
So we need more people, and we are looking to the Ministry of Health to assist us with that. There has been a promise from the minister that they are going to make more people available. As well, though, we do face a money crunch. COVID is an unbudgeted effort. So what, in practical terms, we've been forced to do is to take money from the operational funds of the hospital to pay for the management of COVID. To date, we've invested about $1 million. That's since the beginning of the pandemic in 2020. We have been reimbursed to the tune of about $470,000 from central government. There is a balance of about $500,000. And we need that money because it's not just COVID we are fighting. We still continue to fight diabetes, hypertension, the effects of road traffic accidents, violence, and so on and so forth. So we are in a situation now where it's becoming increasingly hard to pay for supplies, to pay our creditors. And so we're looking to central government to reimburse us for those monies that we've taken out of pocket to pay for the COVID fight, which is a national fight, and which, to a large extent, falls upon the shoulders of the KHMH. Amongst those expenses, sorry?
What's been the commitment?
Insofar as to reimburse us?
Yes.
Well, we've had discussions with the minister and with the prime minister, and we are told that they are looking at the issue. So we are hopeful that we will be able to get the assistance, because the work continues and we continue to spend money, and we need to pay our creditors.
And your staff who's working.
And our staff. You know, if we were to pay for every extra hour that our staff put in, we wouldn't afford it. We wouldn't be able to afford it. But even so, there is the extraordinary overtime that, in addition to the regular overtime, that is still owing to the staff. We did get help earlier this year, for which we are grateful. It was The overtime stood at over $1 million. And
that was from 2020.
2020 and early 2021.
Yeah.
So we were able to clear over half of that, or 3/4 of that, with assistance from central government. But still there is outstanding extraordinary overtime that we have to honor, because our people keep working non-stop, and they deserve to be remunerated. They have families to feed, they have debts and obligations that they also need to take care of.
Now, I mean, this is perhaps one of the central issues, and of course an area of concern, because you know that there have been periods of time where the Nurses Association and even the KHMH Union have discussed what options they have if they don't collect for their overtime. What's the conversation you have with the KHMH Union about having patience through this time where they're owed overtime but not paid?
The conversation continues. I think that we can really and truly say that the union has been very understanding, has sought to work with us. Naturally, patience will only last so long, but I have no complaints. I think that they've done an extraordinary job of working with us, and we hope that cooperation can can continue. There are certain agreements that we are pending in terms of the collective bargaining agreement and so on. We hope to be able to conclude those at some point in the near future, so that the relationship between the union, staff, and management can be a more harmonious and a more predictable one.
Let me step back to the COVID situation for a moment. We know that there is a maternal death that will be reported today from COVID-19. And we've seen, and that mother was in her 30s. We've reported on other 30-year-olds passing away as well. Tell me about the demographics that you're seeing. I think the last time you were here, you spoke of pediatric cases for hospitalization as well. How young are we seeing, and what numbers are we seeing?
Well, let me focus primarily on the maternity deaths, because that is of grave concern to us.
Yes.
Maternal deaths is one of those markers of the development of a country. How well you take care of your pregnant women and children, those are very important indices for development. And Belize has traditionally done quite well with regards to those indices. COVID has come and wrecked that. We have had, in the last 4 weeks, 4 maternal deaths due to COVID. I think in total there are 5 maternal deaths that we can report, but 4 related specifically to COVID. There are other issues in the southern part of the country with regards to maternal care, but I won't get into that. That is for the Ministry of Health to finalize the investigations. But indeed, this trend of maternal deaths is very alarming for us. I'm told by our OBGYNs at the KHMH that pregnant women with COVID are primarily coming in with dehydration, diarrhea, and vomiting. And for the most part, we are able to treat those patients and send them home. Naturally, if they come in with respiratory symptoms, they will more often than not end up hospitalized. But the big issue, the big problem arises when these women require surgery, C-sections, for example. They don't do so well. So they are in conversation with the maternal and child care unit at the Ministry of Health and Wellness to try to chart a way forward, because something definitely has to be done to protect the pregnant population of this country. One of the things that they are suggesting, and certainly I'm not the specialist in this area, but one of the things that is being recommended is that maternity leave be mandatory after 36 weeks of gestation, meaning that you want to confine, if I may use that word, pregnant women who are in that last phase, that last critical phase before giving birth. We would want to see them safely at home, not having to go out and work, not mingling with the general population. Another focus which I think we are going to see is the encouragement for a greater uptake of vaccines in pregnant women. The CDC has not found any significant additional risk when you vaccinate a person thinking of becoming pregnant, who is pregnant, or who is breastfeeding. So I think that that is a necessary step. We do have available the Pfizer vaccine in Belize at the moment. In speaking to Minister Chabat, he says that they are looking at making the Pfizer vaccine available to pregnant women. And because of the short interval between the first and the second dose, that would mean potentially that protection can be obtained within 3 to 4 weeks of the first inoculation being given. So,
do you believe that perhaps part of the awareness campaign that is taking place now should focus on pregnant women and the fact that there should be a drive towards getting them inoculated?
Certainly, we view this as an emergency situation, and that is something that our staff at the KHMH is advocating for. In our release, we mentioned that we would be curtailing outpatient and outpatient clinics and elective surgeries. However, our high-risk clinic has continued to operate throughout because of the importance we give to not only the whole patient population, but especially the maternal population. So that continues to work. However, we also think that it is absolutely critical that coordination occur not only between the KHMH, which is the referral hospital, but also with the NHI clinics, with the polyclinics and government clinics, because oftentimes it is in these populations that you know your cases, you know who is the pregnant lady in your population, you know if she has missed her appointments,
you know her
and
risk
so
factors,
on. You know her risk factors, you know her story, you know her history, and I think that there needs to be given great priority right now to coordinate the care of the maternal population from within all the different interested stakeholders.
Of course, you know that a maternal death and a death of a younger person causes kind of a alarm in society because, as you noted earlier, it's shifted away from the norms of older persons dying from COVID. What do we know about underlying conditions? Is it simply that the new variant is indiscriminately affecting all age groups, or is there still a link with underlying conditions that contribute towards death?
I think certainly everyone is vulnerable. Certainly younger people are more vulnerable now with this variant, with the Delta variant, if we are talking about that in particular. But underlying conditions continue to play a pivotal role in determining how vulnerable you are, how likely you are to end up hospitalized, or indeed how likely you are to lose your life. So what that means is that if you know you have any of these conditions, that should help to overcome any resistance to being vaccinated, but also to exhibiting responsible behavior, meaning adhering to social distancing, using your masks at all time, sanitizing, etc.
Avoiding any crowds.
And avoiding crowds.
And lastly, let's talk about children. What are we seeing in hospitalization for children?
Well, I don't think that from the reports I've gotten that there has been a significant uptick in the number of pediatric cases. I know we had some pediatric cases earlier in the year, but we haven't had any significant increase in that group. And I suspect that more or less correlates with what is being seen in other countries. The debate is being had, for example, in the UK as to whether you vaccinate under 12s and so on. And I think that they are leaning towards not necessarily recommending that. So
it's still a very small number.
It's still a very small number, apparently. And I think that in practice that the same is true here in Belize.
You know, the number that we don't talk about very often when we speak to representatives of KHMH is how many persons have been successfully treated in the COVID-19 unit and released. And I think that that's also a great accomplishment for the hardworking healthcare team. Tell us a bit more about people who have gone to the hospital, been hospitalized, even severe, and been able to go home.
I think that we can say that we are successful in over 75% of the cases. We have been able to send the vast majority of people home. But when you go home, it's not necessarily going to mean that everything is going to be okay. Dr. Koyi, Adrian Koyi, keeps reminding us that we will have to look at the post-COVID complications downstream with lung scarring and so on. So we keep our eyes open for that. But to answer your question, we are, I think, overwhelmingly successful now in managing these cases. Naturally, the earlier you diagnose, the better the outcome.
Yeah. And the average length of stay for patients?
The average length of stay would be about a week. There are some instances, of course, where intubated persons will be in there for 2-3 weeks, perhaps. But if I am correct, I would say that the average length of stay is a week on average.
Well, before we wrap up this conversation, since we have you here, I do want to take the opportunity to get an update on your management positions at the KHMH. We saw last week where there was an announcement made by the minister that in fact a CEO had been selected, and shortly after there was a press release from the KHMH saying not so. We were told that there was some upset from the union and staff workers there about the selection. Let me hear from you, Chairman, as to what's taking place in filling this role.
Well, the position hasn't been filled. And I will be perfectly frank with you. They say that even in the best families, there are, or there can be disagreements. The board of the KHMH presently is one that is very active. There are strong opinions and vigorous participation in trying to find the best way forward. So there's lots of debate. My role as chairman, with about 30 years of experience in healthcare, is to try and guide the board members who may not necessarily have as much experience as I do. But in the end, we live in a democracy. You can't force anyone to vote one way or the other. A decision was made to name one of the candidates for CEO. And as my Aunt Phil would say, if you do wrong, I'll lash your bate. And I'm sorry to use that kind of language, but that is precisely what happened when we saw the backlash on social media in civil society with regards to the decision. Subsequently, not only as a result of that, but also because of new information that came to light, and the decision had to be put on hold, rescinded. I am not at liberty to reveal what information I'm talking about. We have to respect the privacy of the candidates. But suffice it to say that the selection process continues. It will be revisited. And you know,
how many candidates made it to interview?
2.
How many applications did you receive that?
Well, for the post of CEO 2, and for the other posts, several other candidates, many candidates.
Mm-hmm.
I want to insert a message here to say that Carl Huchner is everybody's business. And with comments that we see on Facebook and on social media, that is confirmed, no? Mm. But I will also ask that if you as individuals think that Carl Huchner and his work is important enough, pick up the phone, call your minister, call your member of the House of Representatives, call your Prime Minister, and ask them to ensure that when you select a board, that board be as widely representative as is possible, so that we can benefit from the widest possible range of experience, so that we ensure that the running of the hospital is not hampered or held hostage to narrow or special interests. That is something that must be true not only for the KHMH board, but also all boards across this country. Democracy is not always a neat and comfortable process, and it's rough and tumble sometimes, but any one of us who takes on the role to help in the governance of this country has to be ready to deal with what is required. Mm-hmm. We are trying to change a culture in the KHMH which requires breaking down old behaviors, which requires getting rid of special interests that push contracts here, there, and everywhere. We have dealt with the instances of the 13 babies who died in the special care baby unit. Mm-hmm. And we have also have instances where accusations have been made that certain individuals running the hospitals create phantom companies to sell equipment back to their own hospital. Mm-hmm. All habits die hard. Mm-hmm. We want broke up this league game, and yes, in doing so, we will probably step on toes. We will probably create enemies, but if that is the case, so be it. All of us have a responsibility to ensure that the democracy in this country survives, that it prospers, and so I'm asking everyone to participate in this process.
You said something very telling. Do you feel that the rest of the board of the KHMH shares the same vision and mission that you just shared?
I think so, you know. There might be differences as to how to achieve that goal, but I think that everyone is eager and committed to that. Mm-hmm. But the proof of the pie is in the tasting. And so, as I said the last time, our board is open to scrutiny. I will not waver from that. If it can't be done that way, then I have no desire in participating. I welcome that scrutiny. I think that scrutiny is very important. And I invite the public and the press to look out for our future meetings, for our future decisions, and to hold us to the highest standard, to hold us to task, to ensure that we do the right thing.
When do you expect to have a new CEO?
Well, I'm hoping that within the next week, week and a half, we will be able to make that decision. We are 2 months behind, by my estimates, as to where we should be in reforming the KHMH, in making the management changes to get us out of the lethargy that has been synonymous with the KHMH. The staff, our patients deserve nothing less.
So if there were only 2 candidates and one was rescinded, does that mean you go with the other candidate?
It's quite possible. It's quite possible.
Okay.
But as I said, I am not a one-man show. Democracy does not and should not allow for that. So we try to find consensus and at the same time do the right thing.
Anything else you'd like to share with us before you leave?
We want the public to be engaged with their hospital. I insist and I keep mentioning that our staff has been working flat out for the last 16 months. If you can help us by providing hot meals at night or on the weekends or any day of the week for our COVID staff, please do. These men and women are working long hours. They need highly nutritious meals. And, you know, after a while, they get bored at the same thing over and over again. At this point, I think that I need to make mention of His Excellency, Mr. Arun Harchandani, Consul General for India, who has so very generously donated meals for our staff. He happens to be a member of our board. And he has been very generous in helping us with that. I know that in the last surge, there were lots of people who also helped us. Please, if you have the ability and you have the possibility, help us with those meals. As well, I think we need to mention that a lot of the patients we have there, COVID patients, but other patients as well, may not necessarily have the kind of support, family support. They may have relatives, they may come from far and so on. So if you have the possibility to provide care packages for those patients, we would be most grateful for you to do that for us. That's as much as I can say at this point. No?
All right. And of course, at this time, 18 hospitalizations. Do you normally see a spike on Mondays?
The spikes tend to be on the weekend, which is when staff numbers tend to run lowest. But as I said, we've been averaging 4 to 7 admissions per day. And according to the epidemiologists from the Ministry of Health and Wellness, they expect this surge to peak somewhere in the middle of September. So clearly we are not out of the woods yet.
All right. Well, Dr. Sosa, thank you so much for coming in and giving us this update as to how the KHMH is doing.
Thank you very much for having me.
All right. We're going to go
good
ahead
morning,
and
everyone.
take a break, and we'll be back in a few. Stay tuned.
Technology Center, where you'll come for the price, but stay for the service.
With the touch of a finger, we can easily unlock our phones and securely gain access to our data. This technology is called biometrics, and the Social Security Board is introducing fingerprint recognition to make transactions and handling of your sensitive data secure, fast, accurate, and convenient. Is your identity safe? Fingerprint recognition will keep your Social Security record secure and confidential while making your access fast and easy. It protects your identity. Is your name a common one? Fingerprint recognition uses your unique characteristics, ensuring your hard-earned benefits go directly to you, the rightful owner. Tired of all the paperwork? Fingerprinting makes this hassle-free. Your convenience and your information security is our priority. Fingerprint recognition coming soon. Social Security at your fingertips.
As one of the largest cable and internet providers in Belize, CBC strives to provide our customers with the highest standards of quality, value, and service in all aspects of cable TV and internet. Monitoring our systems closely, our technicians combine creative planning and state-of-the-art technology with years of experience and training to develop and provide the most reliable and advanced cable and internet service to exceed your expectations. For CBC and our team of talented engineers, technicians, and customer service representatives, delivering less than the very best is never an option.
Smart continues to expand its internet coverage countrywide to help you live a smarter life.
Our villagers are very happy. They are pleased to know that Smart went the extra mile to put a tower in our village so that our villagers can get live stream on their TVs and they can get their kids doing their online classes. I want to say to Smart, thank you for making it possible for us to get internet in Gardenia Village. We really do appreciate it.
Smart continues to take the internet and mobile services to communities across Belize. Now save even more when you bundle your Smart broadband with Smart mobile services. Smart, bringing people together.
This can be you. Get vaccinated. The life you save can be yours. This is a message from the Ministry of Health and Wellness.
Imagine going through your entire day without the burden and risk of carrying cash on you. Belize's shift to digital wallets has begun. With eCash, we can now skip the cash when collecting money or paying for our essentials, all while using a fast, easy, and secure platform. Simply add funds to your wallet via bank transfer or at an agent, and you're good to go. You will be able to make quick, easy payments simply by scanning QR codes. And best of all, it all happens just like that. Payments are as easy as clicking a link online or scanning a QR code. Download the eCash app from the Google Play and Apple App Store today and take your first step into a cashless lifestyle. The future is here with eCash. For more information, visit www.e-cash.com or contact us via WhatsApp at 613-0257 to find out more.
And we're back.
We're back. We're getting into our final segment of the show this morning. We have with us online Dr. Lara Spang. She is the presenter. She was a presenter at the recent Culture Symposium. We're going to be talking about the idea of bad mind and what that means. Good morning, Dr. Spang.
Good morning. And actually, I know we don't have a huge amount of time. I don't want to spend all of it talking about bad mind. I want to talk about good mind.
All right.
All right.
Why don't we talk about good mind more? But we can start with bad mind.
Well, you know, once you put it into the title, it made it so much catchier because everybody wants to know and understand. But, you know, as an anthropologist, you have dived into Belizean behavior and experiences in some of the most unique ways. When you were putting together the presentation, what made you think this is the one you wanted to bring out to the public?
Well, to be honest, it's something, I think we actually talked about it briefly last time I was on the show several years ago. It was something that I wanted to kind of dig into a little bit from a long time ago, just to let everybody know. I'm from Toledo District. I grew up around this concept, which is countrywide, this idea of bad mind and, you know, oh, they bad mind you, and so on. And it's fascinating because we find it in the English-speaking Caribbean, but it is not a term that you'll find, for example, in Canada or the United States, except with Caribbean populations. Mm-hmm. The closest thing they have to bad mind in the States is the idea of the hater that comes from pop culture. And that term didn't actually become current until the late 1990s. It was Notorious B.I.G. that really popularized that term, and it's just short for player hater. It's a little more specific than the idea of bad mind. And bad mind is not just in one country, it's all across the English-speaking Caribbean. So it's not just a Belizean thing. I was really curious to understand, why do I keep seeing all these posts on Facebook about it? Why are people always railing up about it? Why is it so powerful in such a little country? And how can that possibly be a good thing for us to be so focused on bad mind? So I wanted to just start. This is very initial research, so there's a lot more that can be done to get a grasp on what's going on, and also to talk about what we could do instead that maybe would take us in a more positive direction.
I am so glad you said that. I've always said I don't understand this whole thing powered by haters. It's not where you should be investing your energy at all. So I'm just going to ask you the question that you did the presentation on. So what does our obsession with bad mind say about Belize?
To be honest, I think it says that we're like almost every other society on earth, which is that human beings, all human beings, we have what's called a negativity bias.
Yes.
Most scientists believe this is genetically selected for. So this means that human beings in general, we focus on the negative. This is actually a survival trait. You know, back in the day when all of us were hunter-gatherers out there, no government systems, no protection, little security. Anything that could be a threat, we were hyper vigilant, we were quick to respond because it was about keeping yourself alive. And that actually did keep you alive, so that was selected for over many, many generations. So we as humans, when things are going good, we tend to take it for granted. Now this can be a negative thing, as we all know. When we take positive for granted, sometimes the positive is going to disappear on you. But that's what we do. When things are going smooth, everything good, we're like, oh yeah, you know, this is the way it is. And we don't take enough time to appreciate it. We don't pay a lot of attention to it. It's when things start to go wrong or something pops up that we see that as a threat, then we start to freak out. Then we start to get worried, and then we start to get upset. And so bad mind is an easy leap from that bias that all of us, every human being, regardless of culture, country, society, that we all have, to focus always on something we see as a threat. And the question is, why does somebody else's success seem to be a threat to you? Why are we taking somebody else's happiness, somebody else's opportunity, somebody else's achievement, and seeing it as a threat? And so my hypothesis on this is that actually the reason we do that here in Belize, and probably in Jamaica, Bahamas, Trinidad, the other countries where this concept is very common, is that we are applying what is known as the concept of limited good. We are applying it to things that are not actually limited. So the concept of limited good is a theory in social science that says that there are only a limited amount of resources, and that if you get more, I get less. So this makes sense, for example, in terms of distribution of land, because we only have so many square miles of land in Belize. So if somebody takes 90% of it, yeah, there is only 10% left for the rest of us. And those kind of structural inequalities are the things that, we have protests and strikes and new elections over, and those are important inequalities that we need to be aware of and address. That's not bad mind. When it turns into bad mind is when we start thinking that there's only a limited amount of happiness, love, peace of mind, or personal success in the world. So now you got this job opportunity. I did not. Therefore, there are less job opportunities out there for me, and I'm going to bad mind you instead of feeling happy for you, or at the very least feeling neutral about it. I'm going to take it personally. I'm going to be envious, malicious, jealous, and spiteful, which is the definition of bad mind that I found across the country when I started polling people online. And also this can be applied to relationships, this can be applied to success with family, with romantic partnerships, with just having a happy life. And people envy that because, then again, this is my hypothesis, and I haven't done an extensive amount of research yet, so it may turn out not to be the case. But I believe it is because we think that if somebody else is really happy and has a lot of good things happening for them, that means that there's less of that out there available for us to have.
That's an interesting perspective.
Yeah, that is interesting. I was thinking, as you're talking, and something I've reflected on before is sometimes too looking at the concept of scarcity, where in fact the spaces for opportunities seem so limited that oftentimes it's easier to think that if I can use bad mind for make a reason as to why some have had access versus some don't. It kind of feeds into this whole idea. But taking it back to our country's history and the colonial times as well, do you make any links there about just limited few having access and this idea of scarcity that has transcended over time?
I think there is a thread, especially in Belizean Creole culture, because the Creole culture was so shaped by colonialism. There is this thread in our discourse about favoritism. And that's not just in political favoritism and nepotism, which we all know is a huge problem in our country. But we're talking about favoritism within the family unit. We're talking about favoritism for, like that I also right there, and so they don't have to do the chores and they get the special treatment and this and that. Well, if we go back in history and we look at, especially at Creole culture, not only because this happens in other cultures in our country as well, but especially in Creole culture and how the Creole population was kind of intimately tangled in with European representatives that were basically controlling and directing all the resources, the limited resources. Now, we're not talking about peace, love, and happiness. We're talking about land, we're talking about business, and we're talking about money. They were controlling these finite resources. And oftentimes, as we well know, they had multiple families. They had the official family, which was usually white. They had the unofficial family, which usually was not. And there was all kinds of very personal issues of favoritism going on. And this was literally dividing family members against each other in some cases. And that kind of thing, unfortunately, it still does go on in some ways within some family units. So there is a lot of attention to the concept of fairness, and basically to the idea that we don't have a lot of fairness, that we should have more fairness, but it's not happening, that we have a lot of favoritism, and that, you know, I'm just as worthy of getting this opportunity as so and so. So why did so and so get it? Oh, it's the connection, it's the favoritism, it's the, you know, it's because it's so and so's son or so and so's cousin. And if you just look at the comments under all your news articles, we well know that this comes up over and over again. And then sometimes it is truly exactly what is happening. We have a lot of nepotism here, we do. So the idea that somebody gets an opportunity strictly on their merit, it's rare that that happens, but I will say, having lived in 4 countries, that it's rare that it happens in a lot of places. It's not just in Belize, but Belize is very small. We
So we
only
know
have
the
about
connections.
400,000 of us, so we know the person. We know them personally, and we're like, well, I know him, and he don't even know about this and that, and I should have get that job, and you know. And so then somebody else who likes that the other person got the job is like, oh, you only bad mind, and you know, he's doing a good job, and whatever.
How does the, Dr. Spang, how does the,
And so this,
how does, sorry, how does the idea of the crab in the barrel mentality play in with bad mind?
it's, to me, those stories are an illustration of how bad mind works. It's a way of kind of giving it a shape and a face. You know, exactly how does bad mind work? So I did research, some preliminary research. I posted in the buy and sell and classifieds groups in every district across the country, asking people to define bad mind in their own words. It was very consistent. Everyone defined it exactly the same, regardless of culture, regardless of district.
Which was?
Which I thought was fascinating. So we have all agreed. We know exactly what bad mind looks like. And it is somebody who is envious, malicious, jealous, spiteful, in thought, in speech, and in the worst case, in action. It's somebody who wants something bad to happen to this other person, and they feel good when something drops through for the other person. They feel good when things don't work out. And I want to interject here that we have all suffered from a case of bad mind at some point. Most of us, at least once, are going to struggle with feeling some envy or jealousy toward another person, maybe because they're doing something we wanted to do, or that we've been thinking about doing, but we never get around to it yet. And then this other person does the zoom past we, and they're chasing that dream, and we feel bad. But we actually are feeling bad about ourselves. So we take that feeling bad inside and we push it out toward the other person. This is typical human behavior.
No, Dr. Spang.
It's not uncommon, and it's totally understandable. The question is, do we want to continue to do that?
We could accept that bad mind, for all intents and purposes, highly contagious. How do we now look at the concept of good mind in terms of being able to acknowledge where people are perhaps trying their best in their own lane to try to be successful or try to be happy and prosperous and what have you?
First off, it is totally understandable if you are up against another candidate for a job you think you're really suited for, and they pick somebody else, and then you find out that somebody in the hiring structure is a relative or close friend of the other candidate. It's understandable to be upset. And in that case, I don't know that I would call that bad mind. I do see people calling other people bad-minded when I think they're actually pointing out nepotism.
Or injustice.
Or injustice. And that is not the same thing as just seeing somebody else in your community, like start one business, and they're making it happen, and then you just start gossiping negatively about them because you're jealous because they're making something happen and you know to do that. Those are two different things. And so we need to be really think about, okay, you know, is this person really bad-minding this public figure, or are we actually seeing a situation here where nepotism is taking place, and we're so You know, we see it so often that some of us are, you know, don't want to take it as a serious issue. We have to be willing to look at that. So being clear about what are structural inequalities that we need to change in our society versus what is just thinking negatively about something that really is not a threat to you.
Yeah.
Those are not the same thing. So when we talk about real bad mind is where somebody's doing something positive for themselves out there. And because you are not, they'll be doing the same thing, or you wish you were, but you're not. You start to talk negatively about them, or maybe in the worst case, you might actually do something negative, like slash the tire on their new taxi, or go like spray paint the wall of their little shop. You know, that's like the worst case scenario. How can we change that? And I think this envy and jealousy, if it is true, if my hypothesis turns out to be true, that the underlying idea is this idea of scarcity, like you said, Marlene, which is basically what the concept of limited good is. It's the concept of scarcity, that there's only so much of something. And so that if you get an opportunity, that means less opportunity for me. We have to start thinking differently about some of those things. So if we're talking about land, it's understandable. If we're talking about making a business happen for ourselves, well, yes, your neighbors start a new business, and who's to say you can't too?
Yes.
Why does them starting a new business somehow threaten you?
Yeah.
And so we really have to think about ourselves, like, why are we threatened by that?
I'm so glad you said that. So some things, some things are definitely finite, you know, especially if you're talking about material things. The things
And
like
I'm not trying to
opportunities and
downplay it.
success, they're not necessarily finite. You can create your own business. You can have your own progress. But I want to go back to something you said. You said that basically you did a poll, and this is early into your research that you did for your symposium presentation.
Correct.
You did the poll and everyone kind of identified the same thing. And you said that one of the common themes was jealousy. But jealousy is a normal emotion. So I think that it goes beyond saying that I feel jealous or envious that you have something I don't. It's what we do about it that makes the difference. It's how we respond to it. And I think that's an interesting construct to examine, why some people are able to say, yeah, you know, good for them, wish it was me. And some people who will go out of their way to say, well, you know, she or he only have that because X, Y, Z, and then move from there. So any thoughts?
The only way we know someone is bad-minded is if they put it out there.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So if somebody feels envious or jealous of someone else, the only way we're going to know that they're thinking negatively about someone else's success or happiness is if they say something or they do something.
Yeah.
So if you feel envious or jealous and you just keep it to yourself and you're like, you know what, I realize that I'm being petty. You know, like I shouldn't, you know, I don't want to feel this way, but I do. You know, I accept that I feel this way. But I'm not going to, you know, try to undermine this person. I'm not going to say negative things out there. I'm not going to do anything negative out there. Then, you know, you're fine. You know, you're working through your emotions. And like I said, all of us have felt those emotions at some time. Like you said, Marlene, it's what we do with them.
So how do we push more good mind?
Right. So first off, what is good mind? We know what bad mind is. When I went back and asked people, you know, how would you describe a positive or uplifting person? How would you describe good mind? I only got 6 responses. I got 46 responses about bad mind. So I think this is kind of revealing of where we are as society, because I did these posts in the exact same group and got minimal response about positive. So it's very easy to overly focus on the negative. It's easy to focus on somebody that is bad-minding us as well, to be like, oh, you know, so-and-so, you know, like me, like this and like that. And then I see people post on Facebook about all those bad-minded people. It's like, man, why are you posting about them? You're just giving them more power.
Yeah.
So first off, stop posting about the person that's bad-minding you, please. It's not helping them. It's not helping you. It's actually getting them the attention they want.
Yeah. Yeah.
Part of the reason people do this is because they want attention. Sometimes it's about attention. So if you're out there, you know, showing them that they're getting to you, then that's success for them, and definitely not for you.
Negative
But then here's
reinforcement.
the question: if you feel jealous, you feel envious of somebody else's success, ask yourself the question: why do I feel this way?
Mm-hmm.
Are they doing something that I want to do? Or are they doing something that they have something that I wish I had? Usually that's the case. Okay, fine. Instead of going out there and talking negative about them, think about asking them directly, or if you're not up for that, asking somebody else who also has what you want, how to get there.
Nice.
You see that this person is doing something you want to do, well, you need to figure out how you're going to do it. So instead of us thinking that we can't have it, that's very negative thinking to our own self. Okay, that person opened a lead business, you know, and I feel bad because in my heart, I wish I had my own lead business, but I don't. And that somehow I feel like I'm not able to do it. So we have to start asking ourselves, why are we holding ourselves back? This other person is doing something. We can too. We can too.
Yeah.
And we have to big our own selves up. And a lot of times we struggle with that. Often I think, you know, we grow up maybe with people who are not always that supportive around us. You know, they don't big us up. They don't say, you can get out there in the world and make it happen. I have faith in you. I love you. You can do anything. You know, we don't have that support when we're coming up, when we're growing up. Then when we get out there, we have a hard time of believing in ourselves.
Yeah.
And so our very first step to being good-minded is we have to be good-minded to our own selves. That means, how can I be peaceful, positive, and productive in my own self?
Yeah.
That starts by being kind to yourself. I feel jealous of that person. Okay, you know, it's okay. You feel jealous. It's understandable. They're doing something you wanted to do.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean you can't do it too. So what's the next step? How can I figure out how to start doing my own thing?
That's
You know,
so
how can I have what that person has? Let me go talk to them. Or if I'm too upset toward them to go talk to them, find someone else, talk to that person. You know, we have very little trust in our country. Our country as a society has a very low level of trust. But there are people out there that will say, hey, yeah, you want to start a business? That's great.
Yeah.
You know, let's give you some pointers so that you don't make the mistakes I did when I was starting out.
Yeah.
And you can get ideas from people that are in a positive place about how to reach where they are.
I love what you're saying, you know, and I'll just add this much. The amount of time and effort that you'll put into feeding into the bad mind, you can actually put towards achieving the same or similar goals. And that's what it boils down to. But also to be kind to yourself, because some people who have had good support systems, we don't often notice that there are others who have not had that, and they need to give others the reinforcement. Dr. Spang, let me ask you, where are you going to go from this point? You put together this information just for the Culture Symposium. Do you think you'll be diving deeper into the research in the near future?
You know what? I'm not sure. I'm going to have to think about it. I'll be honest. I am more interested in the idea of a good mind movement in the country. And really, I think there's a lot of social science research on this that having people think, oh, it's just some new age thing, the power of positive thinking. You think positive and positive will come to you and like, oh, you know, fine. You want to say that, but the reality is the world is a hard place. Bad things are happening. There's a pandemic. The economy is awful. There's violence everywhere. There's no reason to be thinking positive. And that's a valid argument. Things are bad. But I would say this is actually the time when we need good mind more than ever. Because what we need to be doing is really focusing in on ourselves and being supportive to our own selves, especially since we're more isolated as individuals these days, to give ourselves some love and support. And that's especially important if you did not have a lot of that growing up. And so it might be tough because you didn't get to see that as a child. Then it's tough to know, how do I do that for my own self?
Yeah.
And again, it's all about see somebody out there that's living the life you want. Don't be afraid to come up to them and say, you know, I really admire what you're doing.
Yeah.
And it's amazing how you have this and that going on, and I would like to learn from you. Everybody loves to be a teacher. You come to somebody like that, and chances are good that they will give you some helpful advice, and that they might even become a mentor to you to set you on your path.
Nice.
But I think it's really important, more than digging even more into bad minds. is to understand that it's not our only option. And that when we feel jealous and envious, we have to first look, is this a real true injustice that we are seeing here and we should be upset? Or are we just overreacting, taking something as a threat to us when it's really not that? And if it's overreacting, then we have to take that time to think about, well, what do I want to do for myself? I'm envious or jealous of this individual because they have this and this. I want that too. So how am I going to make that happen? So to me, that's what I'm more interested in researching, is how can we help all of us feel a little bit better about ourselves.
Nice. Well, I do hope that you are able to get that moving. We appreciate the conversation this morning and putting it all into perspective. And really a great way and great message to start the week. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you, Marlene. Thank you, Sandy. Have a great day, everybody. And remember, #Good Mind Movement.
That's right. I'm with you there. All right. We're going to go ahead and take that final break. And when we come back, we'll have our wrap up. So stay tuned.
Imagine going through your entire day without the burden and risk of carrying cash on you. Belize's shift to digital wallets has begun with eCash. We can now skip the cash when collecting money or paying for our essentials, all while using a fast, easy, and secure platform. Simply add funds to your wallet via bank transfer or at an agent, and you're good to go. You will be able to make quick, easy payments simply by scanning QR codes. And best of all, it all happens just like that. Payments are as easy as clicking a link online or scanning a QR code. Download the eCash app from the Google Play and Apple App Store today and take your first step into a cashless lifestyle. The future is here with eCash. For more information, visit www.e-cash.com or contact us via WhatsApp at 613-0257 to find out more.
The TV you love is always with you, from live TV, sports, and on-demand titles. Choose your plan today. Plans start as low as $15 per month. My TV, entertainment, anytime, anywhere.
Es un hecho. Únicamente con Smart obtienes todo realmente ilimitado. Solo con Smart obtienes datos ilimitados en cualquier momento. Mientras que con el otro proveedor solo son datos dobles los fines de semana. Con datos ilimitados todos los días no hay necesidad de esperar, así que es un hecho que nuestros planes ilimitados superan a la competencia. Por lo tanto, no permita que le digan cómo y cuándo usar sus datos y obtenga llamadas, mensajes de texto y datos ilimitados. Vive la verdadera experiencia de planes ilimitados con Smart. Es un hecho. Haga el cambio y viva Smart.
And we're back.
We are back. That conversation with Dr. Sosa, though it was an extended one, was important in terms of providing the public an understanding of what the hospital is going through, in terms of how thin its resources have been stretched based on the spike in the number of active COVID cases. I think that him being able to put that into some context for us to be able to understand why it is important for us to be more mindful of, you know, the existing protocols and how we fall into that particular context is critical. I think it's very important.
No, I'm happy that he was able to join us this morning and be able to kind of just have a very direct conversation about what they're facing there. from the stretching of human resources to even looking at the financial resources, and that they still do need additional help there, and talking about the situation of maternal deaths. While we have been talking about this one case, there were 4 more before. And so that shows that this is a very serious situation. We can be able to get more information to you to help you understand how to mitigate the risks, especially if you plan to get pregnant or if you are expecting. But please, I think the underlying fact is, he said on average they have 4 to 7 daily admissions. The latest data is saying that on average 1 person is dying a day from COVID-19. We're seeing people in their 30s dying. So please just be careful out there. I think it is absolutely important that we do our part. It doesn't matter if there's a curfew. It doesn't matter if we are confined to your homes. If we take the measures for ourselves, we are going to reduce the spread of this disease and get it under control.
Yeah. And I would like to not only challenge myself, but challenge our viewers and everybody who's in tune with this particular show today, that instead of conspiring bad mind, that we should actually take the time and channel that energy into more productive, more purposeful pursuits. Hashtag good mind, right?
Yes, good-minded movement. That was such a great conversation with Dr. Spang. She is, of course, an anthropologist, and so she looks into human behavior. And one of the things she did research for the Culture Symposium was, what was the Belizean obsession with bad mind? And it really put a lot into perspective. I think we've all had the experience, and we've all been a little bit guilty as well. So let's be honest with ourselves. But I do think that fundamentally, what I walk away with is, one, there's a common knowledge of what it is and why we do it. And I fundamentally believe that if we're able, and it has to do with understanding your emotions, if you understand that feeling things like jealousy and envy are normal and okay, but the thing with any emotion, even anger, what you do with it is what makes the difference. I can tell somebody I am jealous of them. I can say to them that, man, I wish I could do what you do. I think it's perfectly okay for us to have those kind of conversations rather than trying to nitpick and bring them down from what they've been able to do. So I'm with you. Good-minded movement all the way, and that's what we try to do here at especially Open Your Eyes. So with that, though, we got to wrap up the show. If you'd like to contact us, send us an email at oye@channel5belize.com. Find us on Facebook at Open Your Eyes BZ and on Instagram at OYEBelize. Remember to tune in tomorrow morning at 6:30 when you open your eyes.
To start your morning right.
Until then, keep your eyes, your mind,
and your hearts open.
We'll see you soon. Enjoy your day, Belize.
Open Your Eyes was brought to you by the Belize Bank. Our country, your bank.